What is it they were underestimating about China?
There was a meme saying that the CIA has uncovered a plot where the Chinese just sit back and watch the United States self-destruct. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. I'm wondering if China is now executing better on Ted Roosevelt's advice.
Iran, US, and Israel. What does history tell us about what's going on here?
When a hegemon is late stage, it starts to lash out. No great power has been destroyed without first having been destroyed from within. The rot is always internal. It's hubris that takes us down.
And you can also then heal yourself from within,
Right, right.
This whole war makes you question what is the intention in the first place? Does it put into question the role of superpowers in the first place?
Great question.
You never know how one story, one person, one conversation could change your life. I'm Nicole Lee, and this is the You Never Know podcast. Welcome to the show, Meng Keet.
Thank you, Nicole. Excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. You've been in the financial services industry for decades, but not many people actually know that you have a degree in history from Yale and law from Cambridge.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about financial services and financial markets from a bit of a more historical lens, right?
Sure.
So, a lot of people see that the world is in chaos, or they feel like the world is in chaos. We have the Iran war, we have, the energy crisis, right? The questioning of the US dollar, and even UFO disclosures, right?
Yes.
Meng Keet, let's start with Iran, US, and Israel.
Sure.
Okay. What does history actually tell us about what's going on here? And what do you think is really happening? Is it really about nuclear and oil, or is it something else?
There's so much in that opening question for me to unpack.
Yeah.
But let me start by just stating that today I'm here in my own personal capacity. I wear an official hat at work, but nothing here today should be construed as investment advice. And these views are purely my own, not the views of the house or the organization that I work at. I like what Charlie Munger said. As you know, Charlie Munger was a Warren Buffett's long time investment partner at Berkshire Hathaway. He talked about the importance of an ecosystem of frameworks, right? So we have these, and each subject matter that you're able to be fluent on is very helpful because it's a tool in the toolkit, right? So the more tools you have, the more ways in which you can problem solve. Another way of thinking of that is that if you only have one toolkit, all you have is a hammer, then to you, everything looks like a nail. Right?
That's true, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So knowledge is a continuum, it overlaps, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had to study different things. Now, to the question specifically about Iran and the Straits of Hormuz, it's a bundle. There's so many things that are wrapped into that. There's a strong view. Well, let's start with the official view, is that Iran should be denied nuclear weapons, right? So, and that it constituted some sort of an immediate threat to both U.S. allies in the region and to the U.S. itself. That's one official view. There was another statement put out by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said that we knew that Israel was about to attack Iran. Iran would counterattack Israel. So we're preempting a preemptive strike, right? So that's another view. Now, these are the official statements from the U.S. side of the exchange. A few other strong views is that the United States was actually led into this war by an ally in the region. And there's also another strong view that this is actually part of a wider strategy to contain China and to deny China oil and energy. If you accept that, then there's a second part of a move that started in the earlier part of this year, where Nicolas Maduro was removed in January of this year, right? So these are the official reasons that were given, and some of the discussions that have gone on. But the two things that I sort of think are very consequential that are emerging from this, where we don't end up deep discussion about the reasons for the war and the morality. Number one, it shows the limits of U.S. power.
Yes.
I think this is the first time in a long time that we're seeing that the United States is not able to impose its will on a nation in the Middle East or in that part of the world, probably since Vietnam, right? We've just gotten so used to the overwhelming superiority that I would have thought that the United States would just steamroll Iran in the same way they did with Iraq a few times, Afghanistan and Venezuela, right? So I think probably the military planners in the US were also taken aback by how much of a strong resistance that Iran has put up. Iran has obviously suffered quite badly as well. It's lost thousands of people. Again, the United States has been unable to actually impose its will. It's a sign of that. So I don't think that it is a success. Many of the European allies have denied the use of airspace, airfields, and bases for the United States to continue military action against Iran. This is not something that you've read about or heard about in recent decades even. Right? Of course, it's also causing plenty of hardship in a nearby region in Asia as well. We don't feel it as much in Singapore. I think until the air conditioning gets cut off in Singapore, I think we are all able to get by. But if food prices start to escalate, and it has really gone up a lot in the last few years, then I think we start to feel the pinch day to day. But in many neighboring countries, some emergency measures have already been taken. There is a work from home that's been implemented in a number of countries in Southeast Asia already, right? And there are fuel shortages in some cases. Now, beyond the oil, 20 to 30% of the world's oil and fertilizer goes through the Straits of Hormuz. So we always think of oil and just energy, but the fertilizer, which requires oil for its production, is also greatly impacted as well. So we're talking about food prices having to rise as well. So that is one major consequence of the war. And of course, this puts a strain financially on the United States. Right. So if you're talking about investing, this is where it starts to be a bit more consequential, right? So inflation is likely to rise, and in the United States, the price rises at the gas pump have already gone up. Right. We don't realize how important that is in Singapore because like many of us can actually choose not to even have a car.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
But in the United States, where the main mode of transportation for many people is the car. The price going from $4 or $5 all the way up to $7 is a big
impact.
The other misleading thing is national figures, right? Because if you look at GDP per capita, the United States is a very wealthy country. But despite that, 60 to 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 40 to 50% of Americans don't have $500 in emergency bills.
Wow.
Right? So when I worked in America, I was very surprised that my paycheck came after 2 weeks as opposed to every month. I was like, why is it paid out so soon? Well, actually, there are many Americans who actually need a payout after 2 weeks to get by on expenses.
Interesting.
Right? So when you have prices at the gas pump rise that much, a lot of people actually struggle to get to work even before they can even work. Not having $500 in emergency bills means that if your car breaks down, you might not be able to get to your employment, right? It has a big impact on the middle class in America. And this is also part of, I would say, a trend that started maybe in April 2nd of last year, which was, if you recall, it was Liberation Day. Where the United States decided to tariff the world. Even uninhabited islands were slapped with some kind of a tariff, right? So I think the main outcome of that, unfortunately, was an erosion of trust in a global order that all of us that you and I grew up in, only knowing, right? So that's the first part of it. It's the macro part.
No, I'm trying to I'm trying to sort of digest and process whatever that you've said, because you said that this whole war, you don't think it's a success, right? But it makes you question, what is the intention in the first place? Because if there are so many side effects to a lot of the world's population, then what is the intention in the first place? And like you said, in terms of the world order, in terms of what responsibility a country has, especially a global superpower like the US, what does it actually mean? And does it put into question the role of superpowers in the first place, right? Or is it more of, every nation sort of needs to play a part, in sort of ensuring that there's harmony in the world rather than relying on a few global superpowers?
Great question. One of the other very significant developments in the last couple of months was Mark Carney's speech at Davos. I think the full speech is about half an hour, but there's a summarized version. It's about 15, 16 minutes long. For anyone who hasn't watched that speech, I suggest that you watch it. And I've watched and rewatched it because it was deep, it was profound. It was bold, it was comprehensive, and it largely summarized a lot of what is wrong with the current order and where we might be headed to. But effectively, was my interpretation was that it was a rallying cry for smaller and the middle powers to actually band together.
Yes.
Because the great powers are now. Because if you don't have that to work behind, then you get pretty much crushed, right, by the great powers. Another big development that has come out of the Iran situation, to your point, is also the degree to which people distrust or even now disregard what is reported in the mainstream news.
Yeah.
When it broke out, I spoke to many of the people I know, many of whom are thoughtful, educated, and they know, and they have a good read on geopolitics. No one was buying the fact that it was a big victory at the start, right? Despite all the proclamations that there was, announcements that there was that most of the assets in Iran was destroyed, and it looked like a sure victory.
Yes.
And actually, if you went to independent news sources, there was plenty of reporting that the U.S. bases around Iran in the Gulf region, 15, 16 of them were actually badly hit.
Yes.
Now, none of that was reported in the mainstream media, but CNN only reported it 2 or 3 days ago. Why do we have to wait 2 months in before we hear about it from CNN?
Yeah.
Right?
Why, right?
Right. And then there was another report. I saw the news flash on Bloomberg that it's now reported that the damage to nuclear facilities in Iran was much more limited. Then we realized, again, why did we have to wait 2 months in?
Yes.
So this, again, continues on a long-term trend of distrust, and now even to a point of disregard of the mainstream media.
Yeah, I can fully resonate with this point, even on a personal level, because it's actually training our discernment as people as to what we see and what we watch and what we believe to be true as well, right? Because like you said, underreporting or over-reporting things, it's basically also messaging, right? What we want to put out as well. And I think on a positive note, the erosion of trust globally or in organizations and governments that once held that reputation of sort of being a protector, that erosion of trust actually also rebuilds your own trust in yourself. To then, like you said, it's from a micro level now, where you mentioned about what Mark Carney was mentioning about individual nations or smaller middle tier nations to actually come up and sort of build trust on their own, and that starts with the individual as well.
Right.
It's actually very powerful if you look at it in a positive way. Of course, on the bigger picture scale, it looks like everything is falling apart. But I also wanted to ask you about something that, or someone that a lot of people follow, which is Ray Dalio, right? Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater, and Bridgewater is currently the largest hedge fund in the world, right?
Has been for some time as well.
Has been for some time. So Ray Dalio actually wrote about the big cycle in his book, The Changing World Order. Around the idea that dominant powers in the world will rise and fall. I think he also spoke recently at the Oxford Union about how what he sees now is like rewatching a movie in the 1930s, right? Do you actually agree with what he's saying in terms of the framework of the big cycle?
I've had the fortune of meeting Mr. Dalio 3 times. He asked me to call him Ray, but I, out of respect, I still call him Mr. Dalio. So he's always been very thoughtful and very gracious with his time. I've read the book, The Changing World Order. There is nothing else that I see like it, that really tries to quantify, put together so much good information about the transition of great powers over the last 5 centuries. That said, I haven't had the opportunity to the harsh critic or to fact check every single assertion made, but I believe that the research there is robust and has undergone a good degree of a rigor. He's definitely right about the importance of being able to understand where we are in the cycle of things. If I recall correctly, he thinks that the United States, or at least with the information that he shared, it appears that the United States is right now in a late stage cycle. And one of the things that could follow next is the United States could possibly lose the exorbitant privilege of the US dollar being the global reserve currency. And there's many reasons for that. If we accept that it is late stage, then we roughly have about 20 years before that happens. So it won't happen overnight. And frankly, it could be corrected if there are many strong actions taken by the government to actually rein in some of the spending and to be a lot more fiscally disciplined, which is, I think, one of the things that Mr. Dalio is trying to caution us about. The other thing that I like to caution people about is that I think it's Mark Twain who said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? So if you're looking at the book and you're saying that this is helpful in terms of pattern recognition, I think that's a good way to use it. But if we start using that and trying to prophesize as to what may happen next, I wouldn't do that under any circumstance, right? And I think Mr. Dalio himself has said those who live by the crystal ball, where you try to predict the future, are destined to eat shattered glass. I really like that quote. Right? So plenty of useful information in that book.
So when you actually look back in time, in history, Meng Keet, what have you noticed in terms of patterns? Right, that can be applied today, whether it's to do with the Iran war or what you see globally.
It's expressed through the foreign policy. When a hegemon is late stage and trying to reassert itself, it starts to lash out. It starts to be very adventurous, and it actually starts to get itself into more situations than it's actually able to take on. And actually, a very recent example would be the USSR, which actually toppled during our lifetime, right? And actually embroiled in conflict in Afghanistan, which is now sometimes referred to as the graveyard of empires. It also engaged itself into an arms race with the United States. And of course, with an economy that wasn't as strong as the United States, it actually struggled economically and was just unable to keep up with the arms race, and ultimately with the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So that's Paul Kennedy, The Rise and Fall of the Great Powers, talking about that. And in some ways, you actually see some kind of an arms race with China going on as well. But the one thing that's very stark about this arms race was, this recent discussion of asymmetric warfare. So you have a Shahed drone, would cost you about $20,000. And to intercept that, you would have to fire off a Patriot missile. And if you want to have a close to 100% kill ratio, you would have to fire 2 or 3 Patriots for every one Shahed drone. The Patriots, some estimate they cost as much as $2 million. But even if we take a very conservative estimate, like 500,000, and you fire 3 of them, that's $1.5 million against 20,000. And the other question is, why does the Patriot need to cost that much to begin with? This actually then leads to the next question about how has America found itself in a situation where it has lost the ability to manufacture. Let's put it bluntly, the United States is now no longer competitive in manufacturing. Not just arms. I mean, look at cars, look at everything else. If not for the 100% tariffs on EVs, the United States will be overrun with BYDs. Right? I don't. Ford is competitive in only one class, which is the F-150 pickup truck, which none of us in this part of the world need. Right? It can also be traced back to the Jack Welch kind of management style, which was the thought leadership in the late 90s, early 2000s. Right? Where he transformed the GE from an industrial company to a financial one. Right? So the US economy has been financialized. A lot of the numbers and the growth that you see in the US economy, in the GDP, is actually off the back of, you can say, financial engineering. Whereas the Chinese GDP figures are actually based on manufacturing. Right? And another thing that people should maybe question is the F-35 jet. The whole program costs you about $2 trillion altogether. each jet costs between 100 to 120 million US dollars.
Yes.
Right? The Rafale jet, which is produced by the French, I think was used by India, was intercepted, and a number of them were shot down by J-10 fighters, which were Chinese made, and they each cost about 10, 20 million. So you see this mirrored and reflected in many areas of competition, whether it's in AI, again, right? So you have DeepSeek that came out and generates research tokens at a fraction of the cost of Gemini and everyone else. China is a low-cost producer. And there was a time where everything Chinese was just not at the same quality.
Yes.
But now many of the things that are produced, whether it's in technology, arms, cars, anything else, is actually on par, and in some cases better. The best drones in the world commercially, I think without a doubt, is DJI. Right? And they have 70-80% of the world's commercial drone market. So there's so many parts of the world that are moving, so many parts of the economy.
All the examples you gave, right, in terms of the costs of these, military weapons are so in your face, actually.
Yes.
Because even though the war, of course, is inhumane, it actually reveals a lot of truths that maybe people have not seen before. Right, in terms of the exorbitant defense spending and whether it is justified, right? And I think the other thing that caught my attention was actually about you mentioning about how these big giants and superpowers, at least according to Ray Dalio, is towards the end of the cycle. You said it's another 20 years. But it reminds me of people. When it gets too powerful or when people get too big, sometimes there are consequences. Right?
There's a famous historian, William Durant, and I believe this quote is attributable to him, is no great power has been destroyed without first having been destroyed from within. Right? That the rot is always internal. It's hubris that takes us down. And you see this whether it's the Qing dynasty and so on and so forth, right?
No, and I just wanted to point out that it's actually not also about pointing fingers, but it's also about us as people. And I'm bringing it back to us as well, because I feel that all of this that's happening in the world gives us a very good opportunity to look at ourselves. Because what we can see from and what we learn from the US and what's happening in the world, it actually comes back to us sort of also looking at which part of ourselves, have we not looked at or addressed. Because like you said, right, you actually destroy yourself from within, and you can also then heal yourself from within.
Right, right, that's right.
So actually, everything starts with you. So I love this whole observation and lessons that we learn. Let's talk about China, because you mentioned about China.
Sure.
Now, so much attention is being paid to the US. Everything in the headlines, not everything, but a lot of it. Whether it's geopolitics or whether it's AI, so much of it is shining the light on the US. And not as many people talk about China because they see, interestingly, China as a risk, right? But, based on what you see, whether historically or at the moment, what is China doing right at this point? And what is it that we're underestimating about China?
Sure. There was a meme or a joke that's going around saying that the CIA has uncovered a plot where the Chinese just sit back and watch the United States self-destruct, right? Somewhere along those lines, right?
Yeah.
So why is China quiet? Number one, I think there's just still this, most media that we consume and that we know about is Western-centric, right? China, the Chinese government is also a lot more understated in terms of how it communicates foreign policy, right? It's been pretty consistent about things. There's also a lot of disinformation about China. I don't want to speculate where that might come from, but for example, I visit China maybe at least once or twice a year. I've been to the Yunnan province. I've been to the Tibetan Autonomous Region. I've been to Jilin. So between these three provinces, there are at least like 27, 28 of the 55 minorities. I was hosted by a Tibetan lady who was very proud of her Tibetan name and very proud of her name in Mandarin as well.
Yeah.
I asked her, about speaking Mandarin, and she just looked at me, as to why wouldn't you think I spoke Mandarin? It's important, like how would I do business or even host you if I only spoke Tibetan? Right? So, but a lot of this has been reported as in a cultural genocide. How awful it is for the Chinese government to teach you Mandarin I mean, and if you take a look at the 100 yuan RMB note, you can actually see, some of the minority script. It's not just in Han Chinese. There are many things that are said about these regions, and I personally have not experienced it. I think the middle class there is doing quite well. Now, again, if you look at GDP figures, you're saying, wow, he's only earning that much, but you have to also understand how much things actually cost, right? So, and how much of the services there, healthcare services are actually provided for, and how good the infrastructure is. So you wouldn't have to wrestle with, worry about the car breaking down as much as you would have elsewhere. So, number one, there's plenty of disinformation there. And I mean, don't take it from me.
Yeah.
There's now a 144-hour visa for many countries. Go visit yourself. I mean, as Singaporeans, we don't have that issue, right? We can always get a visa. But for many other countries where you had to apply and to wait for a visa in the past, you now have a 144-hour visa that you can get quite easily. But, China has done many things right? So economists have noted that lifted an estimated between 600 to 800 million people out of abject poverty. Fastest economic expansion in the last 40 years. I think lifting people out of poverty and having good economic expansion is a form of human rights.
Yeah.
Right? Like they might not have the Jeffersonian style democracy where you can cast the vote and it doesn't have the form of a democracy in the West, but that must count for something, right?
Yes,
I think that's important. So China does that well. Now, there is a former U.S. president, Ted Roosevelt, who said, I think September 2nd, 1901, he was addressing a state fair in Minnesota, and he said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far." Speak softly as in, don't be, rough in diplomacy, right? But have a big stick, which means that if push comes to shove, you obviously have the firepower to back it up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if China is now executing better on Ted Roosevelt's advice, where they certainly carry a big stick as well, and they speak softly in diplomacy.
Yeah.
As opposed to the United States, where, as I mentioned earlier, right, there's been threats to annex Canada.
Yes.
There's been threats to annex Greenland, which is a part of Denmark, which will put you in a strange situation where one member of NATO is going to annex another member of NATO. I mean, that makes no sense, right?
Sometimes we don't know the full picture either.
No, we don't. Yeah.
Again, about what the intentions are, because we are only seeing what we are being shown, right?
Just to round off the conversation in China, I think there's an author, Pearl S. Buck. I think she's she went. I think her parents were missionaries, and she lived in China. I think it was in the 30s, but she lived there for a long time. Very engaged with the community.
Yes.
And she wrote a book. The name of the book escapes me now.
Yeah.
But words to this effect: that China is actually vast, is huge, not just as a landmass, but as a civilization, as a continent unto itself.
Yes.
It's so big that the worst of China can be true. But the best of China can also be true as well.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So, I mean, I've been to Yunnan, and so many parts of infrastructure have improved. And I'm sure you can find certain areas where it's still backward and needs a lot of development as well. So, there's this endless debate, you're only showing me the skyline of Shanghai and Beijing, and I'm sure they're not. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but and that's true for every country.
Yes.
And every nation. Including Singapore. I mean, there are different sides of every place as well. Right. And no country is perfect, and no one is perfect too. So I think it's about acknowledging and being aware of what each place, each country, each organization, or each person has to offer, right? And acknowledge that. And so let's go into AI.
Sure.
Because everyone is talking about AI, almost over talking about AI sometimes. And even in the financial space and investment space, people are like jumping into AI related opportunities. But I just want to discuss another aspect of it, because it's meant to make us more efficient, more productive, more intelligent. But based on what you see from history as well, a lot of these new technologies are also shaping us in a way that maybe we don't expect, right? Do you see AI as being different this time? Or do you see that we're walking actually into something that we hardly really know about?
Yeah, it's been talked about being so transformational that it's up there with the Industrial Revolution, right? So, and now with the benefit of hindsight, we know that that electricity and the steam engine and all these things were extremely important and transform the world, the economy, and so many things. I do not know to what degree AI will be that transformational, but I think a good place to look at is maybe more recent history, which is the internet. When the internet companies came on board, if you bought directly into an internet company like Global Crossing or WorldCom, especially in the case of a Global Crossing, you're actually talking about companies that were laying down the fiber optic cables. But that was not the most profitable or transformational thing about the internet, right? All the second derivative, third derivative companies that came out of that proved to be the most lucrative one, right? Later on, I think it was founded in 99, probably 97. It was Amazon that came along. It was e-commerce, right? It took them 7 years to break even and probably about 12 years to turn in a profit. Now, but on hindsight, we know that if you held Amazon as a stock from like roughly about 2000 to 2020, it's one of the best performing stocks over those 2 decades. At the onset of internet, the word social media didn't even exist. And before Facebook, there was MySpace, there was Friendster, there were many similar type things that actually failed, right? And then social media only took root at a certain point. So what's profitable in AI, I think that there's so many people rushing to try to pinpoint exactly where it is. Sometimes it's okay to say that it could be emergent. Maybe it's just down the road. And it's not entirely clear. My point is that sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you get faked and it's not entirely clear.
Agree.
Right? Now, the only reason why I share that caution is because it's so easy to get all the best case scenarios from everyone else. Everyone else is already telling you the good stuff. I don't have to repeat that. Then in terms of AI transforming society, there's been a number of forecasts about the job apocalypse, which means it's going to replace a lot of human beings. I think there will be job losses, and I think there will be, companies that will be extremely profitable because they're able to cut back on the labor costs, and these are things that I don't deny. But my observations on AI is, especially in the financial services, is that it doesn't fully replace an analyst or a deal maker, and it especially can't replace a salesperson yet, right? But the better the user, the more skillful, the more thoughtful and intelligent the user is, the more efficient they get. And if you're mediocre, AI does very little to actually enhance you. So that dispersion between the good and the not so good gets a lot wider.
I fully get you. In fact, it's not just about competence. I think it's also about discernment.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, a lot of people use AI now. I use it a lot as well. And the more I use it, the more I realize that you're only as good as the machine. And when I say good, it's not just about your intelligence. It's actually about, I want to say, your consciousness in terms of knowing when to draw the line as well. And that is equally, if not sometimes more important, because the people who program the AI, they're actually people behind it.
Yes. AI, I don't know. I've been experimenting
different platforms.
Sometimes when I'm on Grok, I feel I'm getting the political bias of an Elon Musk.
Oh, no, I fully get what you mean, because I actually was using ChatGPT and I started using Claude. And the reason why I stopped using ChatGPT is because I felt it was extremely biased. 100%.
I don't know Sam Altman's politics, but I would think it would have some.
No, but it has a certain bias. And I actually see that bias coming on more strongly as I used it, because they are programming it and training it in a different way. And that was when I realized, you really need to own yourself in order for you to not be manipulated almost by the answers they're giving.
So there was a test that went around. Was you were prompted, was the United States founded on stolen land? Right? So because that obviously brings into question the treatment of the natives and everyone else, and you get completely different answers depending on the platform that you use.
Yes, no, it's very, very important.
So I mean, in order to test it, obviously you have to ask about something a bit more controversial. If you're just asking about basic math and science, things which are established as fact, right, it doesn't come out. But with such a situation, it obviously does. The other things about AI, so there's a divergence in the approach of the Chinese ecosystem and the US ecosystem. Most of the US leaders are talking about a move to AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is that superhuman intelligence that will happen in 5 to 7 years. Whereas the Chinese approach, many of them are just focused on mass diffusion, mass mass commercialization of AI, which is to take AI and apply it to what exists today and how that can make things better.
Right.
This is also along the line of if you're talking about innovation, the United States is still the leader on the 0 to 1. So if there's no app or device that existed before to create something completely new, I think the US still leads in that field. But China is very good at the 1 to N, which is maybe something that already exists, but how do you innovate and make it better and cheaper, right, for everyone else? And that's it's effectively the divergence in the approach right now.
Very, very important point, I think, because again, boils down to intention of how, investing is also related to governments and how they support an ecosystem, like you said. US and China have a divergent ecosystem in terms of how they approach AI, which also then affects the investment set and the startups and the companies that grow in the ecosystem. But, it's interesting because why, right? Why choose that direction? It's not just a competitive advantage. I think it's actually more than that, right? It's a strategy in terms of where you want to go for different reasons that,
Yeah. It's also how long-term you look at it. When China announced a couple of the 5-year plans ago that they were going to build high-speed rail.
Yeah.
And when they first built the high-speed rail, the Western criticism was unanimous in saying that, a lot of these lines are loss-making, right? They can't cover it up. But, if you take a longer-term view, sometimes you build it.
Yes.
And then now you've opened up travel to another region that was once completely remote. So if you're measuring things in just the return on investment in a very finance, let's make profit kind of a way, and you don't look beyond that, that it has all these benefits to society. Can you imagine that there's a migrant lady who went from the countryside to work in the city and could only go back once every 2-3 years because it took too long and it was too expensive to get back. And now she can actually make a weekend trip every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right?
I really resonate with this because it's on a fundamental level. Do we progress from investing for profit only, or do we progress from that to investing with a purpose? And purpose is not just for your purpose. It's like you said, do you invest in high-speed railways that enable, greater forms of transportation? Exactly. So I think it's very, very interesting because that would bring us to also why you would invest in, say, an alternatives investment space. Final few rapid fire questions. Okay.
Sure.
History or markets? Which one has taught you more?
History has taught me about context and the behavior of governments and other people. Markets have taught me humility and about myself.
Yeah, I fully understand.
They teach me different things.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Last one. What does you never know mean to you?
You never know means the beginning of wisdom. Because if you always know, and if you know it all,
yes,
it tells me that you have nothing left to learn.
100%.
Right.
I fully resonate with that. It's in acknowledging that you will not know everything.
Right. There's another analogy, right? When you're young, you think you know everything.
Yes.
As you age, you realize that you only know some things.
Yes.
And when you're elderly, you start to realize that you didn't know anything at all.
No, yeah. And having the wisdom to realize that the more you learn, you realize the more you don't know.
Right.
And to be humble and to be open to different lessons and knowledge and wisdom as well.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Meng Keet.
Thank
I
you,
learned
Nicole.
so much today. Actually, we didn't have enough time to cover so many things.
Happy to speak with you at any time.
Yeah, thank you so much for your
insights. I appreciate
insights.
you having me here today and to listening.
If this episode resonates with you, I would love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it today.